Kush and Chemtrails, the world's most dangerous podcast.
Last time I looked into the Knights Hospitaller a couple pods ago. This time I looked into the Templars in Rosslyn Chapel. But let's bring in Trip on this like we always do, dog, and get into this.
Let's trip.
All right, it's time to trip.
Trip
on this.
Trip on
Bring it in.
Yes.
Nobody should be asked to handle this trip. That's some heavy shit. When you were tripping.
Alrighty. Like I said, shout out to JP. Have you heard of Rosslyn Chapel? It's a chapel over there in Scotland.
No, I don't think so.
All right. Well, they say it was built by the Templars.
Okay.
When I first heard about it years ago, this was the thing that everybody was talking about. This first picture right here apparently is corn. This one they say right here is aloe vera, right?
Okay.
And they're saying this was built before Columbus's journey to the New World. How is there corn and aloe vera? They're only indigenous to the Americas. But I'll be quite honest, that doesn't look like fucking corn to me. It's way too like slanted. Like those are the biggest pieces of corn I've ever seen. And the way they fit into one another, it's as if they're hollow and they're going, you feel what I'm saying? So I don't really get corn. This could be anything, bro. And I looked it up. Aloe vera is actually indigenous to India and North Africa. It's not indigenous to the Americas. So, I mean, come on, look at that. That's so, come on, what is that, right?
Right.
So I was like, yeah, there's got to be more. So I keep looking, and I find this, bro. A fucking, a pillar. You see that fake flower right there?
Yep.
Okay, that's an entrance, bro. You see how there's like a hole?
Yep.
That whole pillar is hollow. There's two of them, side by side, the entrance to the fucking temple. And there's giant beehives in there, bro. With fucking honey and all that shit. You know what I mean? Honeycombs. Like crazy. They built that for these bees. And so this is what they said about it when I saw this, because I'll get into what I thought when I first heard bees. I was like, wait a minute. This is the first thing I thought of, but watch this. It says, no one knows why this sanctuary was purposely built in a place where the bees and their honey are inaccessible. Because it's like, why would you put it there? You can't get to it. You got to like break down the rock to get to the fucking honeycomb and all that shit. So it says, Alan Gilmore, who's a stonemason, he said he's seen bees create hives within soft sandstone. They buried into the sandstone and created honeycombs. This weakened the stone. In the 15th century, hives were usually woven skeps. They asked the question, did the monks hope that if they provided a haven in the pinnacle, the bees would not colonize and weaken other stone in the building? I disagreed with that. I was like, nah, bro. I remember specifically when I went to Globe Institute and we were learning sound healing, bees and cats purrs and bees buzzing have healing properties. And I was like, oh shit, bro. So look, I looked it up. Bumblebees have an average buzz frequency of 270 hertz, resonating with a C sharp on a piano. The frequencies that bees emit resonate with organic tissues that promote healing. And I was like, nah, bro.
Yeah.
I've
seen that, bro. Because the beekeepers even have a benefit from it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like, dude, this is some sort of psychoacoustic temple, right? So I'm like, that's what this is. So now I'm looking for proof, and I'm looking at all the sculptures now, and I go through the list, and they got some really cool ones, dude. But they didn't really say anything major outside of like, oh, that's pretty cool. This is the birth of Christ, the crucifixion of Christ. These two were interesting. This is the 7 sins, the 7 deadly sins. This is the 7 acts of mercy. But they switched one of the sins with one of the acts of mercy. And I believe it's charity is on one of the 7 deadly sins, and greed is on one of the 7 acts of virtue. So I thought that was interesting. There's a few other ones. You got devil mad that he can't get these 2 lovers to turn away. Go for it.
Charity in modern time, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and like all these fucking like Soros and all these fucking funds that. I'm gonna get into one on Who's Your Daddy next week. Yeah, charity is covered up as good, but it's not. We've kind of uncovered that too. Red Cross, so I could see that, bro.
It's a great point.
Yeah,
it's a great point. So here you have a devil. He's bummed out because he can't get these two lovers to fucking, fuck with him. And they're looking. They're over here. If you can't see it, it's off the picture. But there's like a shield of Christ. And over here you have an angel tied with a rope upside down. Up here, this is the dance of death, skeletons and people. There's a bunch of really, really interesting carvings. This is the family that built it right here, the St. Clairs, their family crest up here, William St. Clair. But I came down here, dude, and this really blew my mind. The apprentice pillar. Because I'm like, wait a minute, apprentice? That's some Freemason shit. And they're always asking, were the Templars the origins of the Freemasons, right? That's always a question. And I'm like, why are you asking the question when it's pretty apparent they are? But we'll get to all that. But anyway, so this is actually called the apprentice pillar. Well, that's, I believe, the second degree of Freemasonry. I think you're called an apprentice, or maybe even the first one. I don't know for sure, but I'd have to look it up. But anyways, it's part of Freemasonry for sure. And it goes, one of the more notable architectural features of the chapel is the apprentice pillar. The name morphed over time due to a legend dating from the 18th century involving the master mason in charge of the stonework in the chapel and his young apprentice mason. According to the legend, the master mason did not believe that the apprentice could perform the complicated task of carving the column without seeing the original, which formed the inspiration for the design. So he was like, bro, you're never going to be able to carve this. You need to see a picture of the original, and then when I come back, then you carve this motherfucker, right? But the master mason, he travels, he goes and sees the original. Upon his return, he's enraged to find that the upstart apprentice had completed the column by himself. He's a hater. In a fit of jealous anger, the master mason took his mallet and struck the apprentice on the head, killing him.
Damn.
The legend concludes that as punishment for his crime, the master mason's face was carved into the opposite corner to forever gaze upon his apprentice's pillar. There is, however, no evidence that any such murder took place. But when I heard that story, because I study Freemasonry, I go, dude, one of the key central figures of Freemasonry is a guy named Hiram Abiff. That's his story. Okay? We're going to talk about it right here. Hiram Abiff. The tale of Hiram Abiff, as passed down in Masonic lodges, underpins the third degree. It starts with his arrival in Jerusalem and his appointment by Solomon as chief architect and master of works at the construction of his temple. As the temple is nearing completion, 3 fallowcraft masons from the workforce ambush him as he leaves the building, demanding the secrets of a master mason. Hiram is challenged by each in turn, and at each refusal to divulge the information, his assailant strikes him with a mason's tool. He is injured by the first 2 assailants and struck dead by the last. It's the story of Hiram Abiff, right? That's what this is about. It matches perfectly. So this is one column. That's the master's column. Now look at it compared to the apprentice's column. Look at that thing. Much more detailed and beautiful. Mm-hmm. What stands out about that to you? Before I go any further, the shape in itself. What do you see there?
The spiral, of course.
And what do you think about that spiral?
It could be, of course, the DNA helix.
Thank you. Stop there.
Yeah.
Look at that. So, I found this article from Token Rock. Brilliant. DNA and the apprentice pillar. It says, in Rosslyn Chapel stands one of the most striking and exquisitely crafted stone pillars ever imagined. It is called sometimes the Apprentice Pillar, or alternatively, the Apprentice Pillar. And then it goes on to talk about how it got its name. We already talked about that, so I'm going to go to the next paragraph. And it says, since the very first moment I began my research at Rosslyn regarding the cubes, I was always certain that whoever decided to contain a musical piece, we were talking about it being a psychoacoustic temple, right? Mm-hmm. So he's kind of backing that up. He's piggybacking on this. Would leave a cipher, primer, or key which contained a clue to the discovery of the notes. It is almost as if he knew someday someone would pay close inspection to the detail on this particular carved angel and thereby eliminate it as an actual instrument, thus seeing the musical truth beyond the decoy. Like all good primers, a large portion of the work has been staring everyone in the face for centuries, and by directing this central angel on the apprentice pillar to point at the leading notes, we can now hear the true music that the designer intended. The apprentice pillar was always key to the elements involved in the decoding process, simply because the elaboration and decorative style of the pillar looks like a starting point. In the same way, composers of the time would begin with an elaborately drawn calligraphy of a clef for the beginning of the music. So there's sheet music from that era, and you see how it starts with a big, giant calligraphy clef. Okay, so that's what they're saying the apprentice's pillar is. It's a giant calligraphy clef. So he goes in right here. It says the design of the pillar came to the apprentice in a dream. According to legend, and its design cannot be discounted as resembling the helix of DNA. It's exactly what you just said. Many people have remarked upon the similarity to the extent that perhaps the apprentice or the creators of Rosslyn were aware of this helix shape embedded within nature's principles. We are not saying they knew about DNA, but that the helix structure is a fundamental geometric principle of the laws and design of nature. Nature employs the helix structure for its functionality and beauty. So just mathematically, they knew that structure was part of nature and a major geometric component of nature. So it's not about necessarily knowing, oh man, the Fibonacci sequence or the all these things are going to, whether you know it's DNA or not, but you just know that shape is basically, key to life. And they encoded that in there. So it's dope that you saw that. There's another picture of it. And it says, it was these moments of realization that led me to involve myself in the possibility that DNA and music are entwined in a cycle of geometry that expresses perfection in proportion through form. The music we discovered after these realizations is close to the same simplicity with which the designers and composers of Rosslyn have portrayed in their cymatic musical score. William St. Clair and Sir Gilbert Hay opened the doors to a world of nature that is dominated by sound and vibration. No wonder they use cymatics to express their music. God was singing through them and singing his music using the fundamental principles of sound, geometry, and structure. So they started talking about this music, and I'm like, oh shit. So this is some sort of psychoacoustic temple. I had no idea to what degree, bro. This is insane. So it says all of nature is an expression of form, and we now know that form is constructed by sound and vibration on every level of existence. The apprentice pillar proves that from our genetic code to the level of spiral galaxy formation, nature employs this shape as an expression of the perfect building blocks of life and the unwrapping of code and information that is compacted into a structure inherent in the geometry of reality. So this is the last part I want to get into before we end this part. This is the 2-part one, you guys. The second part will be on the next episode. And this is also from Token Rock about the Rosslyn Chapel cubes. And look at them. You know what those are, dude? Those are all cymatic structures and notes on how to play. Those are notes through cymatics on the whole thing, dude. Watch. This is insane how they decoded this whole thing. It says, the lady choir section of the chapel is covered by 215 cubes and rectangles protruding on stems from 14 arches that crisscross one another, and carved into each cube are 13 geometric patterns repeated throughout the entire 215 cubes sequentially. The patterns are only found collectively within one science, that of cymatics. These are produced very easily by laws of resonance and vibration by the use of some very basic materials which were readily available in medieval times. So here's the cymatic, like a picture of a actual cymatics, and then they were able to match it up to these different cubes all along the ceiling of that chapel. Here's more musical cubes, musical angels, and pentagrams. You see the pentagrams and the angels, and then here's more musical cubes. So the whole fucking chapel, bro, is a symphony basically. It's a fucking song. The whole chapel. This goes down here. It says this is the family that found it, the Mitchells. I don't have their first names right here, but this is really interesting. It says the Mitchells found that each of the cube patterns matched specific musical tones that were organized into vertical groups around the chapel's pillars. Using these tones to form a melody, the men then composed and staged the premiere performance of the Rosslyn Motet on May 18th, 2007 inside the chapel. So they played it, bro. They played it. They broke it down, they decoded it, and then they played it inside the fucking chapel. Gangster.
As it was meant to be.
Yeah. To help them decode the cubes, they found a special stave angel figure carved into one pillar that was holding a musical staff and pointing to the three tones, A, B, C, on the treble clef. These particular tones corresponded to some of the cube patterns. Look at the angel, bro. He's holding a musical scale, and he's pointing to the notes, B, C, A. They deciphered that, bro. That's fucking dope. Okay? And I'll get into why those fucking notes are so important. The angel points to B with his right hand and to A and C with his left. This was taken to indicate that the music was in the key of C major or relative A minor, with the leading tone B balanced symmetrically in the center. From this, each of the cue patterns was matched against a particular frequency using a square cymatic plate tuned to C. The resulting pitches were ordered from bottom to top, left to right around the columns, beginning with the stave angel to produce a haunting melody. While this is truly an amazing story, it raises the deeper question of who designed the chapel and why they hid the music in the chapel architecture and what it all means. Founded in 1446 by William Sinclair, the Rosslyn Chapel was constructed to include numerous symbols now attributed to the Knights Templar and esoteric society of Freemasonry. Masonry is regarded as the direct descendant or as a survival of the mysteries of Isis and Osiris in Egypt. The chapel's puzzling architectures was designed by Sir Gilbert Hay, one of the most learned and intellectual minds of the 15th century, under the direction of William St. Clair. As this chapel clearly demonstrates, the resonance patterns created by reflected sound waves were well understood long before cymatic's official scientific discoveries in the 18th century. In fact, knowledge of the geometry of sound can be traced back to ancient Chinese and Egyptian wisdom and was preserved in the Hermetic secrets of Freemasonry. Music, harmonic resonance, and geometric symbolism are all integral to Hermetic beliefs about the structure of the cosmos and all of life. Hay and Sinclair apparently sought to preserve this knowledge in the Rosslyn Chapel. What do you think of that?
It's phenomenal.
It's fucking crazy, bro. Right? It's wild, dude. So, let me go down here, and this talks about all the mathematics in it. So I'm going to get to these last two paragraphs. And it says, in looking at the columns, we see a series of pentagrams supporting the musical angels, but oddly, the angels replace the missing top triangle in each pentagram. Cross-referencing this to Hermetic lore, this missing triangle is the very same golden triangle symbolic of resonance. The question is, how can this particular triangle as part of a pentagram be considered resonant, and why was it so important that it should be carved into a stone chapel? So they're using these mathematical properties, geometric patterns, bro, and musical notes, and using them all to convey to all music. It's all they're all gonna play. They're playing the whole fucking chapel. So this math, real quick, I don't want to get into this, bro, the math, but you guys can look this up for yourself because it's pretty, like, reading it is gonna be crazy. But the math is all fucking golden ratioed out, bro. It's amazing. Okay. And then, so right here it says, to the medieval Catholic Church, Egyptian ideas of resonance were considered part of a pantheistic belief of God in nature and were a direct threat to the Christian belief of God outside of nature. As a result, the geometry of the pentagram and certain resonant intervals were considered unfit for use in the church. This was especially true for the musical interval of three whole tones, known as the tritone. So that's what that whole place is set in, the tritones. Known as Diabolus in Musica, or the devil in music, the tritone is very strongly related to this ancient understanding of resonance, sharing what we will call for now an inverse harmonic relationship with the consonant major sixth. The Rosslyn stave angel emphasizes this fact by pointing to the part of the tritone interval known as the leading tone. As a matter of fact, the melody in the cubes emphasizes the tritone in a way that would have been unacceptable to the Catholic Church in the 15th century. Listen to this shit, bro. The tritone was banned by Pope Gregory in 1234 and is still outlawed in Catholic music. As a result, the Freemasons hid their use of this forbidden interval by encoding it as cymatic symbols in the chapel architecture.
That's beautiful.
That's wild.
Can we hear it? I want to hear that tone.
Yeah, I got it. So this, again, this is all mathematics and music. If I'm reading, it takes forever and it sounds crazy. But you guys, I looked this up. It's really, really amazing. And let me just explain what it does. So it says, the chapel designer suggests a more balanced interpretation of this symbolism. The 215 musical cubes in the chapel total one less than 216, which is the ancient Hebrew number for God. It is said that finding the missing code for this number, 6 cubed or 666, will trigger the messianic age of peace. With this, everything in Rosslyn Chapel seems intended to replace the misguided symbolisms of evil with truth and hope. So just like so many things we're led to believe are evil, it doesn't seem like that is the purpose of that particular establishment. Says opposing forces of resonance and damping are everywhere in nature. The spacing of electrons in an atom, average interplanetary orbits, branching patterns in plants, and the joint spacing in animals that enable articulated movement. Without this duality, nothing could vibrate, move, or even live. Passed down from Egypt and the Orient, driven underground into the esoteric brotherhoods, these fundamental harmonic principles are the very definition of sacred. What could be more appropriate for any sacred temple space than the harmony of nature? Dope, right? Mm-hmm. Now, who's our favorite thrash band? Slayer. Because as soon as I heard Diabolus and Musica, I was like, wait a minute. That's the name of that weird Slayer album that no one liked. So these fools were already up on game. This is from 1998. Slayer. Diabolus and Musica. Let me read this to you real quick. It says, Diabolus and Musica is the 8th studio album by American thrash metal band Slayer, released on June 9th, 1998 by American Recordings. That's Rick Rubin's label. Guitarist Jeff Hanneman wrote most of the album's content, which has been described as Slayer's most experimental. It was the band's first album to be played mostly in C-sharp tuning. Remember, that whole thing was C-sharp? And named after a musical interval known for its dissonance. Lyrical themes explored on the album include religion, sex, cultural deviance, death, insanity, war, and homicide. But anyways, so they did the whole album in C-sharp.
Wow.
And here it is right here, bro. Can we kill that, G? I'm going to play this for you guys. This is the Diabolus and Musica in the Rosslyn Chapel, what they put together. So this is them actually, the music that they...
Oh, they have that.
Yeah, bro.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, the Rosslyn Motet. So this is it right here.
Thought we were going to react to some more Slayer.
Nah, this is Rosslyn.
What's up, Rosslyn?
You wanted to hear this, remember?
Yeah, I do.
I was like, yeah, I got this.
I sure do. The 666, they tried to tell you that's the mark of the beast.
That's it right
you
there.
You know why.
All that, what you hear right now. The music, everything. That's dope, huh? Hey, that never gets old for me, bro. Look at, that's one of the patterns, bro. Dope, huh?
Mm-hmm.
This shit's brilliant, bro.
Ooh.
And what they're putting forth, bro, is like, even with what they had back then, they could have reproduced the frequencies with musical instruments. They had metal tables and they had sand. That's all they needed for frequency. They don't need whatever these guys are using. See, these guys are doing it with a drum.
Mm-hmm.
He's actually doing it with his voice.
I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah. That's that angel right there.
Mm-hmm.
And shout out to these dudes for finding this, bro. For figuring this out and devoting. You know how much experience it probably took to do all that? Countless.
That was a calling.
And cracked the code.
Yeah, they tapped in.
I wonder how good it felt when one of them looked at that angel like, hey, bro, is this fool pointing to a scale of music right here? Of course, they got the CD. You know what I mean? They're not going to miss out on that, dude. They got to make some money back. Anyways, yeah, I wanted to share that with you guys, man. So that's where we'll leave it on this episode, and we'll finish the rest on the next one, brother. But yeah, man, psychoacoustic temples, bro. Go in there, pray, and as you'll see on the next episode, bro, throw some of the old hallucinogens down, raise the temperature in that motherfucker, and blast off, bro. Yeah, that's coming next, bro. So imagine all that going on, and then taking shit, and they talk about, oh, it's dope, bro, when we get into it. But yeah, it's fantastic.
Kush and Chemtrails, the world's most dangerous podcast.